Hello! Today I'm taking you behind the scenes of my marketing strategy sessions. This is partly to show you what I do, but also to show you what's possible, that you can have clarity on marketing your business, even though it seems like you're being bombarded with lots of information and it's a bit overwhelming about where to post. Should you be on TikTok, Reels, whatever? Anyway, so welcome to Grow Your Vegan Business. I'm Jessica Goodenough of Modern Vegan Marketing, and I'm here to help you grow online without the overwhelm. If you're interested in growing your influence, impact, and income, make sure you subscribe. I'd also love to sorry, this is the first time I'm doing this intro, as you can tell. To connect on Instagram, you can find me at the Jessica Goodenough. Right. So what happens in one of my strategy sessions? So this isn't just of course, if you want to sign up, that's great, but also I want to kind of share my process so that if you want to DIY this, you can do that. Right. So everything starts essentially my strategy sessions. It's 2 sessions. You book the first session and then obviously the second session. Anyway, and in the first session we'd have a chat and I'd try and get a very good idea of your business. So my marketing strategies are bespoke. They fit your specific business situation and they're evidence-based. I don't just pluck things out of thin air. We use real data and numbers to guide decisions, because even though as a vegan business owner we all want to help the world and all that, you can only help the world if your business is still staying afloat. So we'd start with, sorry, I'm just people who are watching shuffling around. In the first session, I'd essentially fill out a Google Sheet with various tabs. Anyway, but we'd start with, your business goals. And I'm actually going to, as it's the new year soon, put together a freebie for you. So if you're watching this in the future, I mean, you're obviously watching this in the future because you can't watch it while I'm recording it. But anyway, if you're watching it in the future, you'll be able to see in the link underneath if you're watching on YouTube, or in the show notes, which you can always find at modernveganmarketing.com/podcast. There'll be a link to a freebie about setting business goals, because it's important to know your numbers. Otherwise, you're just kind of heading in any random direction. You don't really know what you do. So we're going to go back to basics here. Knowing your numbers is simple things. So I like to think about things in a yearly, quarterly, and monthly basis. How much money do you want to make next year? And how much money do you want to make next quarter? Start with that. Figure that out. If you don't know, I'm currently reading Profit First, and I'm going to do a book review of that soon, which is really good, on this podcast. But if you want to have a very vague, unless you're making millions, in which case talk to an accountant or whatever, but in the early stages of the business, you can expect to take home about 50% if it's a online business. I don't like brick and mortar is a whole different ball game, but in an online business you can more or less take home 50% when you account for expenses and tax and all that in the earlier days. If you're making several million, you probably need to pay more in tax, and you've probably got an accountant telling you your percentages anyway. So anyway, but so if you don't know how much money you want to make, figure out how much you want to take home or how much you need to take home, and then double that, and then you can have an estimate of how much your business needs to make, and then figure that out for the next quarter. And then what are you selling is the next question. Are you selling products or services? What are your packages? How much is a package? And then from that you can figure out how much you need to sell. This sounds really obvious, but it's worth saying because I often didn't do this, and now that I've done it for 2022, I'm super clear that I actually don't need that many clients to get to my income goals, and that's really reassuring. And also it helps guide my social media strategy, obviously, because if you need 100 clients, you're going to take a different approach than if you need 10 clients, or 1, or if you need 1 million clients, if you're Adidas, which is not a vegan business, but anyway, and you're selling shoes, you're going to have a very different approach from a Coach that sells $5,000 or pound packages. Anyway, so how much money do you need to make? What are you selling and how much does it cost? And how many do you need to sell in the next quarter? And so, as I said, if you're watching this further in the future, there'll be a link to a freebie that helps you think about all these things. But anyway, moving on from that, in the first session, we'd make sure that I'm clear on those numbers, because, as I said, it'll inform different strategies. Also, what I would do then is ask you who your competitors are. And I don't like the word competitors, but we're just going to use it in this context because I can't think of a better word. But essentially people who are in the same space as you, doing similar things and that would have a similar audience. And the reason we'd look at what they're doing is so we can use it as a benchmark and also to see what gaps there are. So benchmark is essentially say all your competitors are on LinkedIn and they're sharing between 2 and 6 times a week. We then know that probably, we should be sharing between 2 and 6 times a week on LinkedIn. But also, I'm not saying like let's exactly imitate word for word what your competitors are doing, because it might also be that doing that identifies gaps in the market. I mean, I'd be surprised, but if you were a vegan caterer and your competitors aren't on Pinterest, then that would make sense to do that, to have like wedding related, if you're doing weddings. Anyway, so it helps to see what they're doing and gain inspiration and maybe do that. Anyway, and to identify what gaps there are. And also it's worth taking note, maybe if you see that all your competitors, which does happen, have horrible, being a bit mean, but anyway, have a certain aesthetic on Instagram that doesn't look very good. Maybe you could be different by having a beautiful feed, or you could see that none of them are using reels, and therefore you could use reels and be found. There's enough space. I don't like the word competitors, and I don't really like the idea of competition. There's enough space on the internet, even if you succeed, for them to succeed as well. Moving on, we'd also look at what's working. And what's working, that's how people are finding you. So there's several ways of assessing that. If you're smart enough to have done this, you might have a form where you ask people how they found you. That's very helpful. But also we can dig into Google Analytics, which would tell you where people come from to your website. So I recently changed websites. You can now find me at modernveganmarketing.com, but it used to be at jessicagoodenough.com. And that website still exists, but it's just not really doing anything. And I'm still setting up Modern Vegan Marketing. You might notice sometimes there's some things that don't make sense, and that's because I haven't finished. I haven't found everything to be updated, so feel free to send me screenshots. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yes, what I thought was interesting, brain fart, with Google Analytics on jessicagoodenough.com is that I had a lot more people come into my website from Pinterest than from other places, but the people that came to my website from Instagram stayed a lot longer. And that kind of makes sense, because Pinterest, we often call it a social media platform, but it isn't really. It's more like a search engine. So the people that found me just found me randomly amongst a sea of pins on their home feed. Whereas on Instagram, they're people either have been following me or whatever that click to my website. Like the percentage of people that click to my website versus the people that follow me and see my content is quite low. So the ones that do that are probably people that have already connected with me and are looking for something on my website or want to work with me or whatever. So it's worth looking at your Google Analytics if you haven't done so beforehand, and getting it on your website if you don't have it. You will learn quite a lot, and that helps you to focus on what is working. And there might be things and then we'd use kind of this data. Wait, I forgot one thing. So we've got your business goals, your competitor analysis, what's working, and also we'd look into who your ideal client is. So I was going to say not obviously. Most people work with a variety of people. So I can come up with an avatar of who I'd like to work with, or think of like brands or influencers or whatever that I want to specifically target. But there'll be people that don't fit in that mold. That's fine. Essentially, what we want to do is think of a typical person that our business would help, or up to 3 maybe, unless you're Oatly maybe, or I can't think of a vegan brand that's really big. Impossible Burger, whatever Impossible's called, Impossible Foods, whatever. Unless you're like a huge brand, you can probably stick to 3 people that you want to help with your business, and because businesses are about helping, and think about their characteristics. And it might be that your ideal customer is a woman, but you help also men. That's fine. I'm not saying we're using this and like rejecting everybody else, but it's to help you with your messaging. So if you're helping teenagers with acne, I'm trying to make something up on the fly, with your vegan face cream, I don't know, I'm making this up, then your messaging is going to be very different than if you're helping older people with wrinkles with their cream. And I don't really believe in, anyway, whatever. But you'd be on different platforms, you'd express yourself differently. That's why you need to kind of think about who your ideal customer is and also where they hang out online, because a 14-year-old might be on TikTok, but it's unlikely that a 65-year-old would be on TikTok. Anyway, so we're going to look, I would then, based on that, what we've discussed in that first session, I'd fill in information about your competitors, about what's working, about your business goals, and who your ideal client is. And with that, you kind of mix that all together, and that's how you come up with the strategy. You add in some social media knowledge, which I have, but all of those things, even if you don't book a session with me, are very important to know. There's like lots of quotes, like if you're speaking to everyone, you're speaking to no one, that kind of thing. But it might help to inform your strategy. I lost track of what I was saying. Anyway, between first session and second session, I would elaborate then a strategy based on those things. So what I was going to say is, like, it might be that all your competitors are on various platforms, but then when you look at who your ideal client is, you can see that there's a gap there, that, for example, nobody's on Pinterest, where it would make sense to be on Pinterest based on who your ideal client is and their kind of behavior, or on TikTok or whatever it is. But we'd also take into account your bandwidth, if you wish. So I'd present to you a middle of the road scenario, if you wish, where it would be not what's ideal to post, because there are marketing gurus out there that say that you should post 4 times a day or something like that. For most people, that is unrealistic. I wouldn't even take on a client that wants me to post 4 times a day, because I think that's too much. It's my personal opinion. I think people are getting a bit saturated with the online world, and I think you don't really want to be following, this is my opinion, but most people don't want to be following brands or companies or whatever that post 4 times a day. I think that's too much. But if you want to do that, do that. But anyway, I would present a realistic scenario based on your business needs and goals and that kind of thing. And the competitor analysis, what's working, and your ideal client of where and when to post. And so that would be the second strategy, the second session, where I'd present the strategy. And that would be things like the platforms to focus on. This is obvious, but it's worth noting that it's not always a good use of your time to be on everything. So I've got a very limited presence on TikTok, and that's because my clients own vegan businesses, and most people on TikTok are very young. So they might not have their own, they probably don't have their own business. I still, and I actually link it in the show notes if you're interested, which you can get at modernveganmarketing.com/podcast, or in the description on YouTube. I'll link my guide to creating Instagram Reels. I am on Instagram because Instagram's huge with lots of different age ranges, but including millennials, and lots of millennials are of an age where they would have a business, or could have a business, as opposed to 12-year-olds. So there are 12-year-olds that have businesses, and there are people that aren't 12 on TikTok. But anyway, my process for creating Reels uses TikTok. So as a byproduct of that, I am on TikTok, but I'm not actively engaging or trying to grow my TikTok, if that makes sense. Anyway, this strategy would give you clarity on what to focus on, what's a priority. I do the 80-20 rule about, like, we're going to put 80% of our effort into these platforms, and then we're going to have these kind of bonus platforms where we can repurpose content and that kind of thing. so you can focus on growing your Instagram and your LinkedIn. So in my case, it's Instagram and LinkedIn. Other people would be other things. Right. Then I'd share with you what to share on those platforms. And that would again be based on your goals and what you're trying to do. So I helped someone recently. I can't say much, I have to be secret about what exactly, how, let me think. Anyway, she's just in the phase of growing her audience and hasn't yet decided on how to monetize it, if that makes sense. So she doesn't have any products or services, but she's growing her audience. She wants to launch a podcast. And so she will share different content than someone who's, say, about to write a book. Well, no, not about to write a book, about to publish a book, or somebody who's launching an online course, etc. So what to share would be different in all those contexts and would go with your business goals. And related to that, we'd come up with social media goals that kind of match your business goals. So if you want a kind of rule of thumb to think about social media goals, I would try and set 3 per month, and I'd probably keep them the same for the quarter, if that makes sense. I'll explain in a sec. So 3 goals. 1, you want to be, and I'll explain what these are in a second, an awareness goal. 1, an engagement goal, and 3, one, start again. 1, an awareness goal, 2, an engagement goal, 3, a conversion goal. So awareness is kind of what it sounds like. It's how many people you reach with your social media. So you can increase this vastly on Instagram with Reels, for example. There's various ways of counting it, but some of the main ways could be impressions and reach. It's just called reach. So impressions is how many times people see things, and reach is how many people you reach on a specific platform. And all of this would be found in your analytics. And what I was going to say later on, but it makes more sense to say it now, is that once I've done this strategy with you, I would either continue, or we could stop there, of course, but I would continue with you, offering you a quarterly content calendar, and then every quarter giving you a report on how you're growing and succeeding based on the metrics that we've chosen. Or if I did it for you, I'd just look at the analytics for you and you wouldn't have to look at it all. They're called insights actually on Instagram, not analytics. Anyway, back to social media goals. So number 1 is awareness. So that's essentially how many people you reach with your social media account. Ideally, we'd be growing that on a month-to-month basis. And when I say we'd keep the same goal for the quarter is, for example, we'd say... So think about all the SMART goals guidelines. We'd say we want to grow your reach on Instagram every month. So for, let's say we're starting the year, January, February and March, month to month, we want your reach to increase. So even if it increases by 1%, that's success. Good for you. And then when we get to the end of quarter 1, we'd reassess and say, is reach exactly the right thing? Do we want to measure something else? That's what I mean by keeping it month to month. And then, anyway, I'm sure I'm making this very clear. Number 2 is engagement goals. And engagement can be measured in lots of different ways. It's comments, DMs, messages to you. And I can think of various different ways that we could count this, but there are, and it depends what platform you're focused on, of course. So if you're on, I'm going to keep going with Instagram because lots of people know Instagram, but Instagram, they have changed their insights recently. I was going to check my phone, but they do offer you an overview of your engagement. And now, which is really good, you can choose what time period you're looking at. So you can choose, even if it's the 5th, what you couldn't do, before you'd have to just do the last 30 days, whereas now you could choose, it's not the 5th right now, but if it was the 5th of December, I could still look from the 1st to the 30th of November, if that makes sense. So you can choose the dates that you're looking at the insights for. And for that time frame, you can look at how many people have engaged with your content. And the third goal is conversion. And I'm just going to actually explain why these are important. The idea of social media is that imagine a wheel. So I've actually explained this. I'll link to the video of me doing a pitch for a social media thing, anyway, a course that I was on. But imagine a wheel, and so people on YouTube can see me waving my hands around. You want to take people that have never heard of you, and get them to start engaging with your social media platforms and progressively warming them up through social media into converting into clients and then becoming ambassadors of your brand is the idea. And you want this wheel to keep spinning, because if you add, like if more people become ambassadors, then they bring more people on, etc., etc. And you also just reach more people through your social media strategies. And that's why it's important to have these awareness, engagement, and conversion goals, is because they all feed into each other. It's nice. I mean, your business goal could be, I want to sign 5 coaching clients, or I want to sell 100 recipe ebooks. But to get to the conversion, you need to have the awareness and the engagement, so the warming up, the discovery and the warming up, Jesus, of the your audience. So we've had awareness, we've had engagement. Conversion can be various things and can be measured in various ways, and it depends on what you have access to and how people buy. But essentially, conversion is people buying, or if you for some reason can't measure how many people buy, which would be strange, but you could just measure how many people click through to your website. That would be a good metric to measure. But we discuss this and decide on what metrics to measure, and by doing it on a 3-monthly basis, you can then have the first month as a bit of an experimentation, tweak things on the second month, and then hit the home run on the third month. Right. So you'd then have these goals, you'd have what platforms to focus on. I would give you an idea of what to share week to week, and so we'd keep a structure that's the same week to week, and then have some tweaks depending on if you're doing a launch, if there's an important day for you, maybe like the anniversary of launching your business, or if you're actually lots of businesses, it's important that Christmas is coming up, or the new year. If you're doing anything health and fitness related, it might be that the new year is a good time for you, etc., etc. So your business will your social media will reflect that there's different things in your business, but I will still offer you a guideline of what to share week to week, and then we can adapt that for each situation. And also what I'm doing now, or want to do now, is give you a content calendar for your first 90 days. So that will not only give you like this structure, so I don't know, if you do food things, it could be like Meatless Monday and a recipe on Meatless Monday, Wellbeing Wednesday, and it's like a reel with your top tip, and then Fun Friday, where it's a picture of you and a bit more about your personal life. I've just made that up on the fly. Anyway, it would give you that in a calendar, but also I'd outline, sorry, I need to take a sip of water. I'd outline the important dates. So yes, Christmas is an obvious one, but there's lots of vegan dates, or dates that are important to vegan business owners. Because as you probably know, there's 3 main reasons why people become vegan. 1 is for the environment, 2 for the animals, and 3 for health. Not necessarily in that order, you know what I mean. And so there's important dates in the calendar, like World Animals Day or whatever, that could be important for your business that I'll also include in there. So this isn't designed only as an advert for my social media strategy sessions, though feel free to sign up. There will be a link in the description on YouTube, and you can always find them by going to modernveganmarketing.com. But essentially that's what I want you to do if you're doing this yourself. I want you to think about your business goals, what your competitors are doing, who your ideal client is and where they hang out, what's currently working, like how people find you right now. Capitalize on that, see where the gaps are, create a strategy from there. And your strategy would be which platforms you focus on and which ones you repurpose to, so are less important. Also, what I didn't mention is a strategy for engagement. So engagement's what happens in the comments and the DMs, and depending on what your business is, this is more or less important. And also a strategy for ads. So say if you're a coach that has premium packages. So you're a very hands-on is maybe the wrong expression, very hands-on coach, and you've got a premium package, then it's a lot more important to go deep in the DMs and the comments and creating relationships with people. Remember, this is social media, but also if people are going to spend several £1,000s, dollars, whatever, they need to kind of have this connection with you first. So that would be a different engagement strategy. So how you warm people up in comments and DMs to someone who has a YouTube channel about health and fitness. I'm thinking about someone in particular, and they sell an ebook, which is $17. You don't need to have like this long conversation with someone to buy a $17 ebook. Whereas if you're buying a $1,700 coaching package, that's a different ballgame. So this person might benefit more from a different strategy regarding engagement. So this one could be more about commenting on other people's accounts and things, whereas, anyway, so that's something to bear in mind as well, to think about what you're going to do on a weekly or daily basis in terms of engagement, because lots of people post and ghost. So I'm a big fan of Planoly, which is the tool I use for Instagram, and Buffer, which I'll both link either in the show notes and in the description, for scheduling posts out. But it's still called social media for a reason, and you're rewarded by the algorithm, but also rewarded by people by engaging with them. So there's also different strategies, whether you've got like less than 10,000 followers or more than 10,000 followers, because I'd recommend, for example, greeting every new follower with a DM, whether you do a voice note, a video, or you send them a message. But if you're getting like 200 new followers a day, then that doesn't become manageable anymore. So there's different strategies based on where you are, and I'd help you with that. And also we design some ads. By design some ads, like outline an ad strategy, because ads is a different beast and would require a bit more work. But let's say so can you imagine the wheel again that I mentioned, where people arrive as cold traffic, warm up from being these strangers to being kind of a warmer audience that started commenting or liking your pictures or your content on other platforms, to then buying from you and then becoming ambassadors. Well, when you're designing ads, which are called Facebook ads, but they also work on Instagram, there's also LinkedIn ads, you target people at different stages in this cycle, and that would just essentially increase the rate, increase the speed and the volume of people that sign up for your program, your course, your ebook, whatever it is. And that would be bespoke. You can't just like just do an ad strategy that works for everyone. Anyway, so we'd outline that. So to go back, you need to look at what data you have and also look up some new data, so like what your competitors are doing, and maybe think a bit deeper about what your ideal client wants. And then come up with this strategy that includes what platforms to be on, what content to share, how to engage with people. If you're going to do ads, what those ads would be. And that's how you go forward. I hope that this has been helpful. If you did want to sign up for a strategy session with me, normally they're £397. I'm not sure what that is in dollars, maybe about 500. But I have a Black Friday, kind of long Black Friday offer that starts on Black Friday, so that's the 26th of November, and then goes 2021, whenever you're listening to this, and then goes to the 4th of December, which in the UK is Small Business Day. And you can get the whole strategy sessions and all that for £197. So this is a great way for you to start 2022 in style. It's a bit scary that it's 2022 and it's around the corner. Not if you want, because I'm leading this podcast, I'm just going to read very quickly a little Q&A I did with Kate, who I did a social media strategy sessions with. So one of the questions was, what were you struggling with before working with me? And she said, having a structured social media marketing plan. What was the thing that made you decide to hire me? And she said, very approachable, knowledgeable on the subject, and a pleasure to work with. I asked, what would your life business be like now if we hadn't worked together? She said less structure and less of a plan. And I said, what is your life and business like now that we've worked together? And she said, I have several action points, a great plan in place, and goals to work towards in an organised, structured way. So this is my invitation to you, whether or not you sign up for my strategy sessions, is to come up with a plan for 2022. Like, business is not, you can't just wing it. It's great being, I've got a friend, Lindsay, hi, if you're listening, who's super spontaneous, and that's great. But I think if you want to make money and support your family, and I know this sounds cheesy, but like help save the world, if you have a vegan business, you need to kind of have metrics to measure and that you can keep working towards. Because I now know how many clients I want to book in January, how many I want to book in February, March, etc., and at what price. And also, I'm increasing my prices throughout the year. Just a warning if you want to do sign up now. But I now know that. And so I know that once I've got my one client or my whatever, I can then take my foot off the brake, maybe with certain types of content, and then just provide more free value. Yes, so essentially my invitation to you is know your numbers and start working on your numbers. So thank you for listening to this rather rambly and all over the place episode. This is my first episode back in quite a while. I've been busy in the background creating my new website, so modernveganmarketing.com. And also I've been taking a course called the Social Media Management Accelerator with Latasha James, which I'd recommend if you wanted to be a social media person, which was really fun. I did the pitch competition I mentioned earlier. And it's been really good. Like, it's really helped me create all these resources in the background. So I hope you enjoyed this. A reminder that the Black Friday offer, getting your social media plan for the beginning of 2022, runs from the 26th of November to the 4th of December. And you get 50% off. Instead of £397, it's £197. And if you enjoyed this and maybe learned something, or you just enjoy rambly chats with me and my plants, though you can't see them if you're listening on the podcast, please give this a like if you're on YouTube and send me your thoughts. You can always find me on Instagram at @thejessicagoodenough. I'd love to connect there, and have a lovely rest of your day. Thank you very much.